The Bryan Kohberger case has had some extraordinary reveals in the past week, including the body cam worn by the officers when they showed up at the King Road house right after they got called. 911 got called by, you recall, it was the friend of the surviving roommate. The surviving roommates were Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen. They called a friend. He came over with his other friend, and they discovered the bodies and got the two girls out. And then the cop showed up wearing body cam. And for the first time, we see one of the main people in this case, Dylan Mortensen, who's the only one who laid eyes on the killer, who we now know as Bryan Kohberger by his own admission. Moments after he committed the murders, he was walking out of their house, and she opened her bedroom door for, I think, the fourth time and laid eyes right on him. And he kept going. But she was the one who said he had bushy eyebrows, described his build, and that he was wearing some sort of a mask. So here she is on camera. And then she did not call the cops for another 8 hours, which became very controversial. Here she is on camera talking to the cops in SOT 33.
What do you remember seeing? What started?
I remember I was in my room, and I was trying to go to bed, and I heard Kaylee, who, ex-girlfriend. All I heard was I heard her go upstairs, like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy. And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran upstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask, which is covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door, and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m., yes. Okay. And so then I just ran down to
You left here?
I left my room down to she's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. I ran down there and we talked, and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything of it. We're like, nothing happens in Moscow, so we just like tried to go to bed. And then we woke up, and it was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up, and so me and like, this is weird. So I called and to come over, and then that's when all this happened.
Phil Holloway, the thing that jumped out at me in that was how much more aware she was of the danger than we were led to believe by the police affidavit, which made it sound like frozen shock phase upon seeing someone in the house, then kind of went catatonic for 8 hours, then called police. I'm not blaming Dylan Mortensen, to be clear. This poor girl's been through hell. But it was shocking to me to see how fearful she was the whole time, and yet didn't call cops until noon the next day, and the murders and the encounter happened right after 4 a.m.
Yeah, that video and the others are, some of the most gut-wrenching body camera videos that I've ever seen in my practice. And I'm sure that both Mark's here as well as you, Megyn, none of us are strangers to looking at police body camera video, but this stuff is so compelling because it illustrates the just enormous sadness of the whole case. And for anyone who's been living under a rock until this afternoon, what we now know, of course, is that Bryan Kohberger's defense team, they're the ones that made a plea offer to the prosecutor to take the death penalty off the table in exchange for a guilty plea. And of course, the prosecutor accepted Kohberger's offer, and that's where we are. No wonder he pled guilty, because he knew that when a jury saw that and some of the other very compelling stuff, they would have the emotional reaction that I know I'm having, and I think most people who have a soul have when they see this kind of thing. And it just illustrates how, the utter evilness of the case. And I keep going back, and I hate to be the dead horse. I keep going back to why is the death penalty off the table?
But I don't know. I don't blame Dylan Mortensen even one bit for this crime or anything. They were not savable. The 4 victims were not savable. If she had called 911, 5 minutes after, it doesn't seem like they would have been saved. They were so extremely attacked and brutalized. But it is at odds somewhat, Geragos, with what we read in the police affidavit. Like, I can't kind of get past the disparity.
Well, it's a really good point, but it also I think, clarifies and amplifies something that I've always argued in a different context. There is no playbook. There is no way that you can say people should react. You can have now you can look at this after the fact and you can say she was shell-shocked, or they didn't understand. And when the enormity of it kind of clicked, that then there was that emotional reaction. That's always been when people point to somebody, and I've been on the receiving end of a client who didn't act right. My retort is, I don't know how you're supposed to act. I don't know what was going through their minds at the point and how they had grappled with it. And it works for virtually everybody. Nobody reacts the same way to any same stimuli.
You refer there to Scott Peterson, I assume, because we've discussed that. And I know you say
I was not thinking that, Megyn, but
okay.
But
it also applies to him, I think you'd say.
I knew you would default to that.
Okay, wait. I want to show you another clip, and then I'll bring you in, Eiglarsh. Here is more of the police interviewing Dylan Mortensen in SOT 35.
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here. And then I heard Murphy barking a lot.
Okay.
And then I heard her go into I think it was the bathroom, and I remember her sobbing, and I just remember hearing this guy's voice that I didn't recognize saying, "You're going to be okay, I'm going to help you," but it wasn't I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't in a nice way, it was a weird way, a weird tone. So then I opened up the door to look, and that's when I saw the guy pass by. He looked at me, but he didn't come towards me or say anything, which was really confusing to me. I don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure he went out the side door. And then I called and said she thought maybe there was a fire or a firework. We didn't know. She heard this loud noise and there was a light, I guess. And that's when I called and I told her, I need to come to your room, because she was the only one that was answering me. So I just ran down there, and for a second I stopped and I saw Xana passed out, and I thought maybe she was just sleeping or something. I didn't think anything because I was so out of it. And I went into the room and we just fell asleep.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, Mark Eiglarsh, including she heard screaming. She heard one of her roommates scream. She heard sobbing. She saw that there was a strange man in the home wearing a mask. She called the other roommate. They blank out the name there, but she's saying Bethany, the other surviving roommate. She called her. She was scared enough. She called the other surviving roommate, who said, maybe I thought I saw a firework inside. And then she saw Xana down post-attack. She said she thought she was passed out, or that Dylan was out of it. I guess I just don't, I still wrestle with how could you hear your roommates screaming and sobbing and see one down and not call sooner? I'm not blaming. I just genuinely am searching.
Megyn, okay. So first, I agree with Phil. This would have been a compelling witness if this went to trial, and who knows what would have happened there. But I start the analysis with, this could be my daughter. I have 3 kids. One just graduated from college. 2 are in college. So this could be my daughter. And so my daughter could be on Megyn Kelly Show and all these networks, and now being analyzed by all of you, substituting what you think you would have done in that scenario. And you're well-intended, but I sure know if this is my daughter, or this girl in particular, she's well-intended. And she did the best she could at her level of awareness at that moment. And just like Geragos said, there's no typical way to act. It's really problematic as a defense lawyer, as a father, as a human being, to continue to hear people say, well, they should have done this, they could have done this, without ever really hearing what they were going through, and or ever being in that particular abhorrent scenario, the worst moment of your life, being questioned by law enforcement. I praise her for having the courage to answer the questions, to help out with this investigation, and nothing that she did was nefarious in any way.
But
well,
what
no
about
one suggested it was? Scott Peterson's nefarious. No one's suggesting it's nefarious. So and you can save your umbrage and outrage. No one's suggesting it is. There's a very odd situation here where she was way more upset and she heard a lot more than the police had revealed to us in that affidavit. She was much more aware that there was danger in the house than we've ever been told before.
So what do you think it was, Megyn?
So it's a fair question to say, why is that? Why didn't the cops reveal more of that? Why did they try to keep that out of the public eye? And I'll tell you what that has done. This is not a Megyn Kelly theory, nor do I subscribe to it. But you take 30 seconds and Google her name online, you've got half the internet thinking she knew more, that she wasn't in on it, but that she knew more about it than was previously revealed. I don't believe that, but I do think it's odd that the cops did not disclose any of that to us. And now we learn when the case is all over that she heard screaming and sobbing and ran for it and all that. Go ahead, Phil.
Police reports are usually, I mean, I've never seen one in my entire career that had everything that should have been in there. Okay. And on the other hand, when I put my former police officer hat on, sometimes I don't want to put things in a written narrative that I know is going to be part of the larger case file because
I'll tell you why they didn't put it in there.
Give that to the public.
I accept that, but I think they didn't put it in there because it doesn't make Dylan look very good. Because they knew that people would say she heard screaming, she heard sobbing, and she saw Xana Kernodle down on the floor. She was scared enough, and then she laid eyes on an intruder. She was scared enough to run to the other roommate's room, and they still didn't call 911 for 8 hours. It's odd. We are allowed to ask questions about how that could happen. It doesn't mean, I'm certainly not saying she had anything to do with it. It's a very odd thing that's just been revealed about this case, and we've been covering this case closely, so I make no apologies for discussing it. What will the effect of the sparring between President Trump and the Federal Reserve be? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time, or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown? And what does this mean for your savings? Consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text MK to the number 989898. Again, text MK to 989898 and consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. So if the Fed cannot stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.